Okay, the video that you're about to see is 2.5 hours long, and it is that long because I'm going to take you through every single task of the PTE test. I'm going to explain the task to you. You'll have an opportunity to practice, then I'll explain why the answer is the way it is. Now, you can watch it here on YouTube, which is fine, or if you want to do it in a more interactive, simulated way, you can actually go to e2language.com, sign up for free, and actually take this guided mock test with the questions on the computer. Okay? It's up to you. Watch it here or check it out on e2language.com. Hello, my name is Jay. I'm one of the expert PTE teachers here at E2 Language. So you've decided to take PTE Academic, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a very good choice. It's a good test. That's all I'm going to say. It's a good test. The problem with it is that there are 20 tasks. So it takes quite a bit to sort of understand how this test works. What we're going to do over the next hour or so is I'm going to take you through each of those tasks. I'm going to tell you about the task. You're going to have a go and practice it for yourself. And then I'm going to show you the solution or a model answer or something like that. So we're going to go through all 20 tasks like that. Ready? You have to stay with me and do this. I promise you it's going to be a painless way to prepare for this test. So let's get started and look at the first task of the speaking section called Read Aloud. Okay, let's look at this first task. It's called Read Aloud, and it looks like this. What you have to do, quite simply, is read a paragraph of text aloud. You're going to have time to prepare to read between 30 and 40 seconds. And when that 30 or 40 seconds is up, the recording device here will open, and you'll have to read this as clearly as you possibly can. Now, there's a couple of little hints here. In the preparation time, you should be whispering aloud the paragraph. So don't read silently in your head because you want to start to warm up your pronunciation muscles, right? So you'll be going something like, beatboxing is a musical art form mainly associated with contemporary. And what you want to do is stop on words that you're going to find difficult to pronounce or words that you perhaps do not know, like contemporary. Get it right and then move on. The last thing you want to do on test day in this particular task is stop. Do not stop. Keep reading. Read that whole paragraph in one go, okay? You can't really make a fool of yourself. Nobody's listening. And the thing that is assessing you is a computer algorithm. So if you do say something stupid, it doesn't matter, okay? The computer has no feeling about that. It's just listening to you to see whether you're saying the words correctly or not, okay? That's it. So just push through. I think even more critically for success in this particular task is that you understand what you're saying and you speak with meaning, okay? So you should be filled with meaning as you're saying the words, because when you do that, your oral fluency, that is the way that you deliver your speech, will be better. You'll pause in the right places, you'll use the correct intonation in the right places, and you'll have better overall rhythm, okay? So I want you to have a go at this and don't just dismiss it as a simple read aloud task. This is pretty easy. I mean, it is easy in some sense, but you really want to maximize your scores, okay? So what I want you to do in the preparation time is rapidly whisper through, identify words that you're going to have trouble pronouncing, but more importantly, understand what you're reading. And then when it comes time to actually speak aloud, read with meaning. Cool bananas? I'll see you in a second. Okay, how did you go reading that aloud? It's pretty difficult, right? It's some of those words were quite complicated. You want to make sure that you keep the rhythm up. So let me do a reading of this paragraph. I actually haven't read it aloud yet, so I've only just seen the first bit. So this is a real reading, and away I go. Beatboxing is a musical art form mainly associated with contemporary hip-hop culture in which performers use their vocal tract, mouth, lips, and tongue to create percussive sounds. Sometimes individual beatboxers perform as part of an ensemble, providing beats for other musicians, but often they perform alone, singing and beatboxing simultaneously. One of the things I like to do when I'm doing a read aloud is actually move my hands because it helps me to sort of get in the rhythm of what I'm saying and understand what I'm saying as well. Importantly, while I am reading this, I'm trying to understand what I'm saying. And in that preparation time, if I did it, I would have understood the paragraph. So beatboxing is a musical art form mainly associated with contemporary hip-hop culture. So when you are practicing this one, which I recommend that you do, even though it's a seemingly simple task, is practice reading with meaning, practice reading with your hands, practice reading to express as much meaning as you possibly can. Don't be afraid of pausing, for example. You'll notice that between sentences there were slight pauses. At certain parts, like after commas, there were slight pauses, for example. Anyway, cool. Hope that was helpful. Let's move on to the next one. The next task that you'll see on test day is called repeat sentence. This is what the screen looks like. What's going to happen is you're going to hear a single sentence, right? And what you need to do, as soon as that microphone opens, which you'll be able to see visually when it opens, is you need to repeat the same sentence that was said, the exact same words, and try to actually copy the way in which it was said as well in terms of intonation. It's pretty straightforward, this task. I mean, that's all you have to do. You just listen, you'll hear a sentence, you repeat the sentence back. The problem is it can get pretty tricky because the sentence lengths can vary quite considerably. As I mentioned, when you're doing this one, you do want to not just repeat back the words, but also try to capture the same rhythm or the same intonation that the speaker used when he or she said the sentence. So for example, if the speaker says a sentence like, make sure you bring your books back to the library after school, or something like that. Make sure you bring your books back to the library after school. Try to copy the sort of rhythm of that sentence, okay? Don't repeat it back like, bring back the books to the library after school. The last thing you want to do in PTE speaking is speak in a monotone, flat way. Try to bring rhythm into your voice whenever you're doing any speaking task. Cool. Anyway, have a go at one and I'll show you what to do after this.
There are a number of reasons why a result is not returned.
Okay, how did you go repeating back that sentence? Let's have a look at it. So the speaker said, there may be a number of reasons why a result is not returned. Now you can hear that the intonation actually sort of goes down at that final part. A result is not returned. See if you can copy that. Hopefully you got all of these words correct. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 words there. If you do miss one, for example, that's fine. Just repeat as many as you possibly can. You are awarded points for each word that you do say correctly. Cool. Anyway, that's pretty straightforward. Let's do the next one. Okay, this task becomes considerably more challenging than the first two. This one's called Describe Image. And what you'll have to do on test day is describe an image. Now, the type of image that you get on test day will vary. You may see a line graph like we just saw. You might see bar charts, pie charts, Venn diagrams, maps. You may also see just sort of like photographs where you have to describe a photograph. Some of them are pretty straightforward. Sometimes you'll see two, like a pie chart and a line graph. It's pretty crazy, but it's okay. It's fine. You can do it. Now, the timing is interesting. Let me explain to you how the timing works with this. You get 25 seconds to prepare to speak. In other words, you get 25 seconds to analyze the image and to think about what you're going to say. When that 25 seconds is finished, you then get 40 seconds to describe the image. You don't need to speak for the entire 40 seconds, but you should try to speak for more than 30 seconds, okay? At the very least. Optimally, you will speak for about 35 seconds describing that image. Okay, what tips can I give you? Well, listen, to be perfectly honest with you, if you are not yet familiar with the methods of E2 language, if you haven't been to our website and learned our methods, watched our methods lessons, or seen them on YouTube even, I suggest that you start there because there is a bit of a structure that you can apply to any image you see. What you do not want to happen on test day is that you sit there and go, okay, so there's because you are penalized, you will lose points for your hesitations. You will lose points for hesitations. You're allowed to and ah, that's okay, but not too many times as well. What you need to be able to do, or at least try to do, is to maintain consistency of speech, okay? Anyway, it's probably best if you just have a go at it, see how you go. You've got nothing to lose here, and then I'll do a performance. I'll show you what I would do with this one here. Cool, see you in a bit. Okay, I'm gonna have a go at this. This isn't scripted. I'm just gonna speak spontaneously, which you'll need to do on test day as well. Here we go. This graph represents the number of podcasts that were listed on iTunes in America between June 2007 and June 2015. There are between 0 and 250,000 podcasts on iTunes. As we can see, there was slow, steady growth of both active and inactive podcasts across the time period, but there is quite a big distinction between the number of active podcasts and the number of inactive podcasts. In 2015, there was obviously the most podcasts listened to. Okay, definitely not the greatest description of an image that I've ever done, but that's just what happened, okay? That's what happened. My conclusion was a bit odd. In fact, I think it was a bit absurd, but again, don't be hard on yourself. This is quite a challenging thing to do, even for a native English speaker, right? Yes, anyway, this one does require practice, and I really do suggest using the E2 language method when you practice this because it does enable you to describe any image with a particular structure, and that's the structure that I just used. I'm not going to go into detail here about that method, but that is certainly something that's going to be able to help you out. Cool. Okay, the next task is called Retell Lecture, and this is what it looks like on test day. First thing you'll notice is an image. There's always an image associated with this Retell Lecture. It's going to give you some sort of indication of what the lecture you're about to hear will be about, okay? So let me describe to you what happens with this particular task. You're going to hear a lecture of between I think they can be as low as 45 seconds up to about 90 seconds, okay? So just a short little snippet of a lecture. And let me tell you, the lectures that you hear in PTE Academic are real. They are not fake lectures. They are not scripted, recorded ones. They're actually real from real professors. So there's a lot of mumbling and a lot of stammering, and they're quite difficult to understand. And some of the topics are quite complex. One of the ones that I had on test day, I remember, was on some sort of physics. And I have no background in physics, but actually it was Retell Lecture. I just needed to deal with it, and that's what you'll need to do here too. So you're going to hear that lecture that will go for up to 90 seconds. While you're listening to that lecture, this is absolutely critical, you need to take notes. Because what will happen, as soon as that lecture finishes, you get 10 seconds, 10, 9, 8, to prepare to retell what you just heard in your own words. 10 seconds on test day goes like that. Also, this task is virtually impossible to do without a good set of notes. So if you're not good at note taking, you need to start practicing that skill, because in PTE Academic, it's an essential skill that's going to get you through and will probably be the difference between you succeeding or not. Because in short, you can't retell this lecture without the notes. Cool, that's it in a nutshell. Again, there is a method, a template, a bit of a structure that you can use to help you with this, but go ahead, have a go for yourself, and then I'll see you and I'll have a go at this myself.
Now, we know that the success of driverless cars is dependent upon the science of artificial intelligence and visual recognition. But what we also know is that visual recognition by machines has some way to go. There are sophisticated considerations which we as humans employ without a second thought, such as separating an object from its background, knowing when an object ends, or recognizing an object partially obscured. In terms of autonomous vehicles, this begs the question, what happens when a driverless car approaches a stop sign that has been sprayed with graffiti? Does the car stop? Now, Philip, you have similar doubts about robots, especially regarding how they can perceive objects.
Well, these systems have gotten quite a bit better at recognizing objects, and in certain standardized tests, they can classify images about as well as humans do. But when it comes to shape, there are major deficits. To give a simple example, imagine you have a glass horse ornament on your desk. As humans, we know it's a horse from the shape. A computer, however, will say it's a hook or a corkscrew. It doesn't recognize horse just from the shape.
And this clearly has profound implications when it comes to driverless vehicles.
Indeed.
Okay, how did you go retelling that lecture? Before I give you an example one, I just want to have a look at the vocabulary that we just looked at here. And let me take you through this one. This one was a complex, it was actually an interview, not so much a lecture. But one of the things I want to point out to you is that the complexity of the questions that you'll see or hear on test day will vary. That is, the difficulty levels of each of the questions will change. There'll be sort of medium level difficulties and hard ones and some easy ones, for example. This one that we just listened to was relatively complex. Let me take you through the vocabulary here. So as you can see here, a lot of the words are pretty straightforward. Words like science or no or second or even simple ones like better, for example. Lots of simple level words here of a complexity of an A level. But as we go down here and the colors get darker, we can see that some of those words are really complex, and there's quite a substantial number of complex words here, like perceive or objects or background or corkscrew, for example, classify, standardize. So there's a mixture of simple vocabulary with complex vocabulary within here. So that's just something to be aware of. Okay, so I have my notes here just on a piece of scrap paper. I hope you don't mind. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to retell that lecture in 40 seconds using my notes. My handwriting's really messy. I haven't written full words. I've just written in shorthand, just little, a few letters here and there that will sort of jog my memory. So I now have two forms of memory to help me. I have my actual memory, of course, but here on the page, I have words that will help me to structure and remember what was said. And hopefully I'll be able to speak nice and fluently and on topic. Okay, let's see how I go. The speakers were discussing driverless cars. They mentioned the need for artificial intelligence and visual recognition. They described how humans use sophisticated ways to recognize things, and they talked about the problems machines have doing this. They then discussed the problems machines have recognizing shapes and suggested that computers cannot yet match humans in this field, which is a concern for driverless technology. Not the, again, not great, but this is hard. It's really hard. This is my first language and it's still hard. So for you, I can't imagine how complex this is. One of the things you may want to consider before test day, and I strongly recommend this, is getting some feedback on your speaking or writing. A lot of people take the PTE and don't get the scores they want. In other words, they fail. And there's no reason why. So I shouldn't say that. They don't know why they failed, okay? There is a reason, but they don't know what it is, okay? One of the things that we can do at E2 Language is very rapidly identify what you are doing incorrectly. It may be something really minor that's impeding you from getting the scores that you need. So if that is the case, you might want to think about getting some speaking and writing feedback. What you do is you sign up to the website, you'll upgrade your account, you can submit both your speaking and writing through the computer, through the website, and you'll get a comprehensive report card from one of our teachers within 24 to 48 hours. So it gives you a detailed score report and feedback on your speaking tasks and comprehensive score reports and feedback on your writing tasks. It's super efficient. It's a really quick and easy way to find out what you need to do to improve. Cool. Let's have a look at the next speaking task. Okay, the final speaking task is called Answer Short Question. And what you need to do is answer a short question. It's that simple. So what's going to happen here is you'll have a little bit of time to take a breath. You're going to hear a question. Someone is going to ask you a question. And as soon as the audio recorder opens, which you will visually be able to see, you simply say the answer to the question in a single word or a few words maximum. Just keep in mind, you do not need to answer in a full sentence. In fact, you should not answer in a full sentence. So we're looking at a single word or a couple of word answers to these questions. Cool. Pretty straightforward. Let's have a go at it. I'm sure you've answered a question before in your life. Here we go.
What do you call two lines that run side by side but never meet?
How did you go? Did you firstly understand that question? Because that's critical. If you don't understand the question, you obviously won't be able to answer it. This one was pretty tough. Just between you and me, this was actually a question that I got on test day on my PTE. So I don't think they would still have this question because that was quite a few years ago. But this is a good indication of the complexity of some of the questions that you'll get. So what do you call two lines that run side by side but never meet? The answer to that is parallel. Okay, parallel. So you could say parallel or you could say parallel lines. Either of those would be considered correct, but certainly the word parallel has to be in there. Well done. You've just learned about the speaking section of PTE Academic. We've just gone through the 5 speaking tasks there. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. That's what's going to happen on test day. Of course, for each task, you're going to get more than one question. I can't remember the number of questions you get, but for read aloud, for example, you get, I think, 4 or 5. Repeat sentence, you can get 10 to 12 of those. So you get a number of each task. But that is the speaking section in a nutshell. Cool. Let's move on now. Let's have a look at the writing section. Okay, the first writing task is called Summarize Written Text, and this is what it looks like. Oh no, you're also going to have to do some reading here. I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way that this one works. It does contribute points to both your reading and writing scores. So let me tell you what's going on here. It's a pretty busy screen. First thing I want to point out to you is the timer, because in this one, you get 10 minutes to complete this task. It's one question, basically. You might get one of these or 2 of these on test day. Here you have a paragraph or a few paragraphs of text on a specific topic. What you need to do is you need to read this very carefully and understand it. Then you need to summarize it into a single sentence. One sentence, one sentence. So you're taking all of that information, all of those words, all of that meaning, and you're boiling it down into a single sentence. And your single sentence, we recommend, should be between sort of 30 and 40 words, okay? You can write up to 75 words, but there is no need to do that. Okay, so between 30 and 40 words. So the key to this one is actually in the reading, because you need to understand what you're reading in order to summarize it appropriately and to make sure that you're getting the main idea of that text and any critical details, okay? So one of the things that you need to be able to do here in order to succeed is actually ignore a lot of the meaning, a lot of the information. Okay, put it to the side. It's not important. What is the critical thing here that you're reading for? The main piece of information that you need to make is the central part of your sentence. Cool. Anyway, you have 10 minutes to do this. Have a go at one for yourself, and then I'll show you my model answer. Cool. Good luck. Okay, how did you go reading that text, understanding it fully, and then translating it, if you like, into a single sentence? It's a pretty challenging task. One thing I want to mention to you is that preparing for this test can be pretty boring, okay? It's not that fun, especially when you're by yourself. One of the things we do at E2 Language, which makes it much more interesting to prepare, is we run these daily live classes. So twice a day, 7 days a week, you can attend from your lounge room or your bedroom or your school or wherever. You can open your laptop and attend the live class. And we'll have a teacher there who will actually take you through this, and there'll be dozens and dozens of other students in there. And it just sort of makes it a bit more motivating to prepare for these tests. So do think about signing up to some live classes on e2language.com. Cool, okay. Here is my sentence. My sentence says this. After much research, Dr. Tom Morty recommends that students sleep for at least 8 hours before an exam in order to increase their ability to concentrate and remember, which are critical factors for academic and exam success. That's 37 words, and that is cool because what I've done is I've captured that main idea here, the real essence of there's the bullseye. The bullseye, I've got the main idea of this and I've put it into that single sentence there. So you do need to make sure that you capture that main idea. You may need to read that thing 2 or 3 times to make sure that you have understood it. Good stuff. Okay, let's move on. Let's do the second and final task of the writing section. Okay, like all good English language exams, I'm sorry to say, you have to write an essay. So on test day for PTE, you're going to see this interface. And let me point out some stuff to you. Here you'll have your sort of question prompt, and here you just simply write in your essay. The wonderful thing is it does count your words automatically. As soon as you've finished, you just click the next button here. You'll have 20 minutes. Here we go. This is what it says. 20 minutes to plan, write, and revise your essay before you click next. You might get 1 essay or 2 essays on test day. Okay, let's go through this question prompt here. It's a bit of a leading question. It says, preparing for an English exam online is more effective than preparing in a traditional school. Let me read that again. Make sure you understand this fully. This is critical, actually. On test day, read this thing like 7 times so you fully know what's going on here. Preparing for an English exam online is more effective than preparing in a traditional school. Discuss the extent to which you agree or disagree with this statement. Support your point of view with reasons and/or examples from your own experience or observations. If you have not yet watched the Super Methods lesson on how to structure up an essay, you must go and do that. Because for a lot of you, you probably haven't written an essay since you're in high school, understandably, and you probably have forgotten how to construct an introduction, body paragraphs, and conclusion, and how to make the introduction link to your paragraphs, how to make the conclusion link back to your body paragraphs, and how to make the introduction link to the conclusion, etc. That video is going to help you out enormously. It gives you the structure of the essay. And once you have the structure, you can basically answer any question that you'll see. The questions that you'll see will look pretty similar to this. There may be a little bit of variation on a theme. You're always going to have to write an argumentative / persuasive essay where you sort of choose a side, argue for a side here. Okay, before you go and write yours, which I'm sure you're just going to click next because it's boring writing an essay, I strongly suggest that you do write one just to get a feel for it. You don't want to leave this until test day. I'm going to show you mine. Mine's kind of an advertisement for E2 language, but anyway, it does use the nice structure. This is what I wrote. And within this essay is the structure itself. You can't really see it because all you see is words and sentences, but sitting below this is like a skeleton, a strong structure of every one of those paragraphs, okay? And what I've done is I've just filled those paragraphs or filled the structure there. It's so important that you learn that structure. So I wrote, English examinations are notoriously difficult. Many candidates not only fail on their first attempt, but some continue to fail multiple times. There are two main ways to prepare. You can prepare in a school or you can prepare online. This essay will argue that online preparation is a far better choice for candidates who wish to succeed faster. While there are a number of issues that students face when preparing for their English language tests in schools, the main one is a lack of personalized learning. In a classroom, there can be up to 30 students studying at once. This means that the teacher spends very little time focusing on the students' weak areas. Research suggests that teacher-to-student time in a classroom can be as little as 2 minutes. Clearly, this is an insufficient amount of time to address particular student errors if one wishes to be successful. In addition to tailored learning, online exam preparation also offers greater flexibility. In today's day and age, many people are far too busy to travel to a particular location to study. Online learning offers these people convenience. For example, at E2 Language, you can log into our daily live PTE classes on your phone from anywhere in the world. This flexibility allows anyone to have the best possible exam preparation, no matter where they are located. Overall, it is clear that preparing for an English exam online is a superior experience in terms of personalized learning and convenience. If I were you, I would consider preparing with E2 Language. What a wonderful essay that was. What a fantastic structure it uses. Cool, now it's your turn. Good luck. Okay, did you do it? Did you write an essay? Look, whatever. I don't blame you if you didn't. It's boring, but yeah, again, it's good practice. You can, as I mentioned before, if you want feedback in your essay, type one up and submit it through to one of us who will grade it, give you some comprehensive feedback. Let's have a look at the scoring of the essay. This is important to understand. Okay, so how does that computer algorithm score your essay? So you scored on content. That means that you write on topic. So if you are given an essay topic, for example, about preparing online versus preparing in a school, then you must write about that. If you deviate even slightly, you will be penalized. The computer knows by the content of your vocabulary whether you are writing on topic or not. So make sure you understand that question prompt. Everything you write has to be directed to that question prompt, be about that question prompt. Cool? That's important. And if you write substantially differently, you'll get 0 for everything, okay? So in other words, you can't memorize an essay and bring it with you in your head. That's a stupid idea. Just answer the question, use the E2 language structure, you'll be right. Cool. Second thing is development, structure, and coherence. Again, the super methods lesson is critical for this one because it'll just almost guarantee that you get a 2. Length. Well, you have to write between 200 and 300 words. Simple as that, and you'll get a 2. Don't write below, don't write more, okay? General linguistic range. This basically means how precise you are with the combination of your vocabulary and grammar. What am I trying to say here? I'm struggling with my general linguistic range. How precisely can I describe something or show something through language? That's what this is about. How good is the versatility of your vocabulary and grammar? Yeah, something like that. Okay, grammar, usage, and mechanics. This is basically sentence structure, plural nouns, verb tenses, articles, etc. So it will grade you on your grammar. Vocabulary range. So what you want to do is try to find some synonyms related to topics like online learning, learning on the computer, classrooms, schools, stuff like that. So try to vary your vocabulary as much as you can, but making sure that you're still on topic. And spelling is also graded. Just with spelling, keep in mind that you can use American or British spelling, that's fine, but you need to choose one and stick with it, okay? What I've noticed from spelling is that it's not weighted heavily. So if you do make spelling errors, you may get a low spelling score, but your writing score will still be quite strong, which is good, okay? The key to this one is if you're writing a word and you're really thinking, uh-oh, I don't know how to spell that, think of another word that you do know how to spell that means the same thing and write that one instead so you don't have to go through that risk. Cool. All right. Just on the topic of personalized learning, if you do want to get some personalized tuition, you can do that at E2 Language. You can join an E2 expert in a one-on-one tutorial for any task or tasks of your choice. So it's one teacher to one student, 45-minute sessions. You get all of your questions answered. It's particularly helpful for a task like write essay, for example, because what you do is you type it up, you submit it through. And then what happens is in the tutorial, which is done on Zoom, so a program like Skype, we have teachers all around the world, so it can be at a time of your convenience. The teacher will actually go through your essay with you, pointing out what's good, what's bad, what needs to be done to be improved, and how. And you sit there and you learn this. So it's a very rapid way to improve your score, improve your proficiency and your score. Cool. All right, guys. We're through speaking and writing. We're now onto the reading section. Stay with me. Let's have a look at the first task of the reading section. Okay, the first task of the reading section is called reading and writing fill in the blanks. And as the name suggests, it contributes points to both your reading score and your writing score. And it's a fill in the blanks type of activity. This is somewhat what it looks like on test day. It's a little bit deceiving. In fact, on test day, these are going to be a drop-down list that you click and it's going to show 4 options. But you get the point immediately what you have to do. Now, there are two things that the list of words will test for. This one is actually testing you for grammar. Okay, it's testing you on a particular verb tense, actually. But the rest of them, and most commonly, will test you on vocabulary. And what this task is really testing for is word choice, okay? Because what it's giving you is a list of choices or a list of options of which one will be correct or precise in that context. Yeah, this is why it contributes points to your writing score as well, because one of the critical elements of writing, or how to be a good writer, is your ability to choose the right word at the right time to convey the right meaning, okay? A critical skill. It's something that you really should pay attention to anyway. It's powerful. Cool. Anyway, you may as well have a go at this. Just before you do, I want to talk to you about how the timing works of this reading section. So far in speaking and writing, the tasks have been self-timed. That is, each task has its own little timer, and you don't really need to worry so much about managing your own time. Now, in the reading section here, you get overall time, okay? So you get an overall time to complete all of the tasks. The problem with that is it's up to you to decide when to click next and move through the tasks, okay? It doesn't tell you. So you can spend all of your time on one task, which would be ridiculous, or you can move efficiently and accurately through the reading section, having a good idea about when's a good time to click next, okay? What we'll probably do for you in the mock test here is just give you a single timed question, but ignore that because on test day, as I mentioned, it has overall time. All right, have a go at this one, and then I'm going to take you through the answers. Okie dokie. How did you go? Was that pretty easy? Did you sort of quickly go, yep, that one, that one, that one? Or were you struggling? Okay, because if you were struggling, I've got a little something to talk to you about after this. Let's go through and look at the answers here though. Okay, so as I mentioned, this first one was actually a question of grammar. So recent clinical studies of olive oil have been shown that it may reduce, shown that it may reduce, have shown or has shown that it may reduce. Whoa, this is really tough because here we're looking at what the subject is here. And it's actually clinical studies, plural. It's actually not olive oil. This is in fact the subject. So now we need to connect the verb here. Clinical studies, let's get rid of this one and this one. Clinical studies have shown or has shown. In fact, the answer here is have shown. If you mistakenly thought that this was the subject, you would have chosen has shown here, but that was not the subject. It's clinical studies have shown. Whoa, tricky, tricky, tricky. These studies also elucidate, indicate, quantify, or hinted that eating olive oil can blah, blah, blah. The answer here is indicate. That is the precise word here. Elucidate is wrong, quantify is wrong, and hinted is just wrong. Scientists believe that there are elements specific to olive oil which have special properties that play a role in reducing damage, creating damage, proliferating damage, or declining damage. The answer here is reducing damage. Now, this one, of course, relates to the context, okay? And what you'll find with this task is that the right word depends, or your decision as to which is the right word depends on the surrounding information, the context here. In other words, you have to understand what you read from beginning to end to choose the right word. Choosing extra blah, 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 blah. Vegetables and whole grain breads and cereals may reduce your risk of chronic disease event, development, build out, or initiation. It's chronic disease development. It's reducing chronic disease development. So they are the correct answers. Have shown, indicate, reducing, and development. Okay, one thing I want to talk to you about, if you are lacking the necessary vocabulary to do tasks like this, if, for example, throughout this mock test, you've sort of been thinking like, whoa, you know, my English is pretty good, but I don't really have that academic vocabulary. I don't really have that topic-specific vocabulary related to, you know, whatever it is, health, environment, crime, education, these sort of academic topics. If that is the case for you, then I strongly suggest that you check out this website called e2school.com. This, if you like, is the sister website to e2language.com. At e2school.com, you can build your basic or fundamental skills. One of the courses we have on offer is called Test Ready, and it's for vocabulary building, test skill practice, and it helps you with listening, reading, writing, and speaking, as well as I said, vocabulary. And what it does is the teacher here, Alex, will actually take you through topics like crime or technology and help to build your vocabulary in these topics. So it's extremely helpful for language tests like PTE. Cool. Let's do the next task of the reading section. Okay, the second task of the reading section is called multiple choice, choose multiple answers. It's a pretty straightforward multiple choice type question. Don't freak out here. You probably just looked at this and thought, that's it, I'm going home, I'm sick of this, I'm gonna look at Instagram, watch Netflix, I hate this stuff, I'm over it. Please try to do this, honestly. If you don't do it now and you try to do this on test day, your chances of success are going to be greatly diminished, okay? You need to pay attention. One of the challenges of this test, especially the reading and listening sections, is your mind, because like everyone else, you probably struggle to pay attention, okay? You really need to get over that, okay? And especially when you're preparing, you'll be sitting there and you'll go to do a multiple choice question, for example, and you'll get 3 seconds in and you think, bugger it, I'm sick of it. I'm going to have a cup of tea or I'm going to do something else. You need to push through those feelings. You need to continue to pay attention to what you're doing because that's how you improve. It's time on task. That's how you improve. Cool. All right, let me take you through this one. It is challenging and it's not that fun, I agree, but at the end of the day, you need to pass this test, so let's do it together. So you're going to see a few different things. Critically, you're going to see a question prompt here. This one's straightforward according to the text. You're going to see various answer options here, of which more than one will always be correct. It might be 2, it might be 3, it could even be 4 perhaps. Usually it's going to be 2 or 3 of these will be correct, which means the other ones will be incorrect. What you need to do here is you need to identify keywords or usually keywords, and then identify the corresponding keywords in the text. Okay, and then you need to ask yourself, do they say the same thing or do they say something different or contradictory? If they say the same thing, you'll keep it, you'll check it. If they say something different or contradictory, you'll move on. Anyway, see how you go with this one. Then what we'll do after you've had a go and you've paid attention and you've had a good crack at it, I'm going to actually take you through the answers and show you what they are. But please do try to maintain concentration for 3 minutes here. See you in a bit. Okay, how did you go completing this multiple choice, choose multiple answers? Let's go through the answers together here. Answer option by answer option. Okay, the first one says, people who repair computers are in a unique position to make more sales. So here it's talking about if you're a computer repair salesman, if you're a computer repairman, or whatever. This is a critical word that really changes the meaning of this. The answer is no. While the author is referring or using computer repair salespeople as an example, it is just as an example. It is not referred specifically to them. So this one is wrong. I wouldn't select that. The next one says there are misconceptions about why people should post content on social media. Okay, so here it says something about you might think of it posting content as losing business. You're probably thinking, how does teaching my customers how to solve their problems for free get me more customers? But the truth is this, something that a lot of you aren't understanding. There are misconceptions about why people should definitely, that is definitely one that I would select. Next one says, you should create marketing materials for social media to make more immediate sales. Okay, this is in direct contradiction with a lot of information in the text. You'll get the sales in the end. It will be better for you in the long run. You're in it for the long run. You're not doing it just to bait your customer into a quick sale. But I'm going to win the war. Even that is a metaphor referring to long term. And this says something about making social media for immediate sales. That is wrong. Next one says Facebook videos should be no longer than 30 seconds. Okay, well, this one says put out 30-second videos on Facebook. Does it say any advice or any sort of should type of words here about the time length of videos? No, this one is not strong enough. It does kind of mention the length of time, but there's no advice given here, really, okay? I'm not going to select that one. It's not a good answer option. Okay, this one says, by educating people for free on social media, you eventually achieve greater success. That is what the whole text is really about. So in the end, what I have chosen here is, let's see, B and C, D, E. I've chosen B and E as the correct answer options there. Cool. How did you go with that one? That was, the text itself didn't have any really complex vocabulary in it. It was a pretty straightforward medium level text, but it did require a lot of reading. These ones can have text up to 300 words. That was pretty close to 300 words. The problem with multiple choice, multiple answers is knowing where to look in the text to see if they say the same thing, the text and the answer options say the same thing, or if they say something contradictory. That really is the key. Once you can do that, which requires you to scan the text identifying keywords, that really is the key skill behind this one. And then of course you need to read in detail to find out that meaning. Cool. Anyway, that's good practice. Of course, if you want more questions to practice with, check out e2language.com. You can sign up for free, or if you upgrade your account, you'll get heaps of practice questions, including smart questions where I take you through the answers. Okay, this is my favorite task of the PTE. It's called Reorder Paragraph, and I think it's a bit of fun. What you see on the left-hand side here is a bunch of random sentences. These sentences, in fact, do come from a coherent sequential paragraph. However, the sentences have been jumbled up. Your job, as you probably can imagine, is to reorder the sentences into the correct sequence so the meaning flows from beginning to end. I don't even need to explain any more than that. The only real tip I'm going to give you to start you off is that you find the independent sentence, okay? Let me explain what I mean by that. The independent sentence is the sentence that doesn't refer back to other sentences. In and of itself, it has meaning. Like if you pulled that one independent sentence out and just read it by itself, it will make meaning and it will sort of introduce the idea of the paragraph. In short, it's the topic sentence. You need to find the topic sentence. The problem with this one is there are two that could be the topic sentence. Anyway, so choose wisely and I'll see you in a minute or two. Okay, how did you go? How did you go sequencing that paragraph? Did you get it right? Did you do it with full confidence? Were you able to think, yep, okay, good, yep, pretty confident with this? Or did you do it sort of haphazardly, sort of guesswork? Hopefully you did it with some confidence. Okay, let's have a look at this sequence. What is the correct sequence here? So in fact, this paragraph starts with a question. It says, what exactly happens when you blow on a soap film to make a bubble? As mentioned, this is a good independent sentence. In and of itself, it makes sense. And it's also a great introduction to a paragraph. The paragraphs that you'll see on test day won't have questions, or maybe every now and then you might get one with a question. So don't just look for questions as the start of your paragraph. This is a unique one, okay? Usually they won't have a question in them, but this is an interesting one. So what's the follow-on sentence here? Well, it's this one. Behind this simple question about a favorite childhood activity is some real science. So you can see how these are connected, because this is a question, and then it says behind this simple question. And of course, we've got a referent pronoun here that is referring back to that there. The third sentence says, in a series of experiments replicating bubble blowing, NYU's Applied Math Lab has discovered 2 ways in which bubbles can be made. The first is by pushing wind through a circular wand with a soap film, which causes a bubble to grow. The other way is by gently pushing wind against an already inflated film in order to drive its further growth. Now, I'm guessing that some of you thought that this was the independent sentence, and I'm guessing that some of you actually put E as the first sentence, and then put this as the second and this as the third. But then you're left with this sentence here as the fourth, and it just doesn't really fit. So you would have had to have rearranged it. Anyway, hopefully you didn't come across that problem. Hopefully you got it right. Cool. Anyway, you'll get a number of these on test day. They will vary in their difficulty level. They will vary in the complexity of their vocabulary. Yes, but this is what you can expect. Let's do the next task. Okay, the next task is called reading fill in the blanks. It's very straightforward. This is what it looks like on test day. And as you can imagine, what you have to do is take one of these words from the bottom here and you drag and you drop it into the gap. Now, what you're doing here is you're completing, or what this is testing for, is your knowledge of and your ability to produce what's called collocations. A collocation, put simply, is a word pair. Okay, so it's a pair of words, usually 2 words, that come together in high frequency. Like, for example, in English, we have strange collocations like we take a shower, for example, or you take a rest. These are collocations using the verb take. Okay, or a more academic one would be to accept responsibility. You accept responsibility. Commonly occurring pairs of words that come together. That's what this is really testing for, amongst some other meanings as well. Anyway, pretty straightforward. You have a go at it, and then I'm going to take you through the answers. Cool, how did you go? This one was actually a little bit different. There weren't too many collocations here, but let's go through the answers and hopefully you got them right. Okay, so the first one, our ancient ancestors had many ways of something with their dead loved ones. Okay, really, the only word that can fit grammatically here is actually parting. So, I mean, it has to be parting because of grammar, but don't just rely on grammar to identify if this is correct or not. What this is a collocation. You part with a loved one. You part with a loved one. You part with a loved one. That is a collocation. That is a combination of words that appear together in high frequency. Some were left in. Okay, well, we can see here trees and mountaintops, for example, and here we have the word caves. So I'm going to take this right around here. Some were left in caves. There you go. That's correct there. Still, others were sunk in lakes, put out to sea. Now here we have a past participle, almost looks like a past tense verb. We need an adverb here, ritually cannibalized. If you do know your parts of speech, if you can identify that this is an adverb, that this is a plural noun, that this is a plural noun, for example, that this is a gerund, that this is an adverb, and this is a plural noun, this is going to help you on test day because sometimes only a particular type of word can fit here. We know that the answer to this one here can only be this one or this one. And then we just choose for meaning. So that's helped me enormously. Let me get rid of my drawings there. All of these something, though some may seem strange, all of these what? What are these? These are practices. Practices. So practices was the correct word here. Cool. Anyway, so they're the two main features of this particular task. Your ability to identify and use collocations, those word pairs, but also if you can identify and use parts of speech like grammar, then that will be helpful as well. Okay, the next reading task is called multiple choice choose single answer, and it's very straightforward. Okay, it's a multiple choice question with one answer option that is correct. It's going to ask you for the question prompt, which I'll show you in a second, which is really critical. Is going to ask you to read for a main idea or like the gist of the entire paragraph. It might get you to read for a detail. It might get you to read for an opinion of somebody or an attitude towards something. It might get you to infer or make an inference or see the meaning behind something. So whatever you do, make sure that you read this very, very carefully because this is really critical. There are two types. This one is an incomplete sentence. You can see ... It's an incomplete sentence. Sometimes it will ask you a direct question with a question mark. Anyway, have a go at this one and then I'll take you through the answer in a minute or two. All right, it's a simple question type, but this particular question that I wrote, really does get you to read in detail for something. It's asking for you to identify a specific detail. Let's have a look at it in more depth, a little more closely. So it says, according to the passage, this of course is the passage, this whole thing, paper transcripts. Okay, cool. So I think, woohoo, found it. Paper transcripts. I just got to read this. Easy peasy, pudding and pie. Kissed the girls and made them cry. No, in fact, I needed to read down here because the answer wasn't located there. It was actually located here under paper transcripts. So let's go through the answer options one by one, and we'll start at the bottom. Okay, so paper transcripts will likely take more than a week to be delivered. Well, does it say that? Well, up here it says from the date of payment, please allow up to 10 working days. No, it will likely take more than a week. No, it just doesn't say that. That's not right. Paper transcripts require you to complete a student authorization form. It just doesn't say anything about that at all. So I'm not going to select that one. Okay, paper transcripts are only available for study periods prior to 1990. Paper transcripts from 1990 to present can be issued immediately. So it's not that one. Okay, we're left with this one here. Paper transcripts can be paid for and collected on the same day. Paper transcripts can be issued immediately at the front counter of the student center. The cost is $40. That is the correct answer there. Okay, cool. You're done with the reading section, which is fantastic. You've done the speaking, you've done the writing, you've now learned how the reading section works. We're now up to the listening section, okay? So stay with me. We've only got 8 more tasks to get through, and then you'll understand the PTE in its entirety. Okay, see you in a little bit. Okay, the first task of the listening section is called Summarize Spoken Text, and it looks like this. What's going to happen is you're going to hear a lecture, okay, so a lecture or an interview that will go for between, say, 60 and 90 seconds. Okay, not very long. What you're going to have to do while you listen to that lecture is, again, take notes. In fact, in the entire listening section, you'll be using your notebook a lot. So on test day, they give you this thing called an erasable noteboard booklet, which is a notebook and a pen. It's critical that you take notes for some of these tasks. So you'll listen to that lecture interview, you'll be taking notes. Then you'll have about 9 minutes left because it goes for 10 minutes in total, this task. And you'll have to turn your notes and your memories into a well-written summary of between 50 and 70 words. Pretty straightforward. Just before you have a go at yours, I just want to talk to you about timing for the listening section. So this particular task, Summarize Spoken Text, the first task of the listening section, is timed separately from the rest of the listening tasks. So that 10 minutes you get for this task, you should use all of that time. Use all of the 10 minutes here. Then when you move into the next tasks, which I'll show you in a second, you have to start self-managing your time. But for this one, you don't have to worry about it. Just use all of the 10 minutes. Cool, all right. Have a listen to this lecture or interview, take some notes and turn it into a summary, and then I'll show you mine after that.
Recently, we've seen the rise of voluntourism. That is, tourism which is linked to doing good for the local community of a travel destination. Now, this field tends to attract student volunteers, perhaps best described as amateur humanitarian workers. They join in projects like building, painting, teaching, or sometimes they just make friends with children perceived to be in need. All seems very nice at first glance. But the voluntourism industry is coming under fire lately. Why? Well, a number of reasons. Perhaps the main one is the lack of skills these volunteers sometimes have. They may be there with the best of intentions to alleviate poverty or offer support to vulnerable people. But what can often happen instead is that they end up sort of contributing to patronising or unhelpful ideas about the places they visit. And when children are involved, the inevitable departure of the volunteerist can have a devastating emotional impact. Now, it's not necessarily the volunteer's fault. The very design of these programs is often to blame. But it begs the question, is there a place for volunteerism? Well, I believe yes, but long-term commitment is key. Doctors, engineers, computer scientists, and particular types of educators have important skills and could make more enduring contributions.
Okay, how did you go? First of all, understanding what you were listening to, taking notes while you're listening, and then transferring your notes into a well-written summary. It's a pretty challenging task. Here's what my summary looks and sounds like. The speaker was discussing volunteer tourism. She mentioned how volunteer tourism mainly attracts students, and she described how they participate in projects like building and teaching. She talked about the lack of skills among these volunteers and the problems this can cause. She discussed the impact on children when a volunteer leaves, and finally she suggested that volunteer tourism programs would be better with longer-term commitment from skilled professionals. So this is 69 words, it's well within the word count. It uses a good structure, which is the E2 language method. If you don't know what that is, do log into the website and watch that video. It's an important one. It's got good grammar and all the rest of it. Now, one of the problems that a lot of people will face when doing this is grammar itself, okay? Grammar in any language is complicated and actually extraordinarily complicated. It's almost like philosophy. Anyway, I've been trying to understand grammar for quite a while at a really in-depth level, and it seriously gets into some crazy realms about time and space and causality and reasonality and all this sort of bizarre stuff. We've made it way easier for you to learn grammar. What you can do at e2school.com is take our free grammar review course, which is easy to learn. It's taught by expert teachers. I'm one of them, and there's lots of fun activities and application to listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So if you do want to sign up to our free grammar review course, check out e2school.com. Okay, let's look at the next task of the listening section, and you'll start to have to manage your own time from here on in. Let's check it out. Okay, the next task and the first task where you need to start managing your own time is multiple choice, choose multiple answers. This time it's the listening one. So this is what it looks like. It's pretty straightforward. Like multiple choice, choose multiple answers, or multiple choice, choose single answer, it's important that you pay attention to this question prompt. Okay, that's absolutely critical. And like the one in reading, there will always be more than one answer option that is correct. So there might be 2 or 3 or possibly even 4 correct answer options. My suggestion for this one is that you take notes again. Okay, because one of the things that's so challenging in a listening test is that they're also sort of testing your ability to read, okay? Because you have to read those answer options. The problem is you cannot listen and read at the same time, okay? If the audio is saying one thing and the answer options are saying another thing, my brain, like your brain, cannot compute that. It's too much information. I can only listen or read. And so I can go back and forth rapidly like this, but it's much better if I just put those answer options to the side, take my notebook, listen carefully to that lecture, okay? Because that's what you're being tested on. Take notes, and then when the audio finishes, look at my notes, use my memory, and decide which of these answer options are correct, okay? That's how you do this one. Cool. Anyway, let's see if you can do it. I'll see you in a few minutes.
The World Solar Challenge is a race for solar-powered cars covering about 3,000 kilometres from Darwin to Adelaide. The cars competing in the Solar Challenge use solar panels, a bit like you might see on the roofs of houses, and they work by converting sunlight into electricity. The panels are made up of wafer-thin layers of silicon. When sunlight hits a panel, electrons in the silicon move to create an electric current. On a typical solar-powered car, the solar panel can generate about 1,320 watts. That's about the amount of electricity some hairdryers use. So to be able to drive at normal speed on a highway, the cars have to be as small and as light as possible. And then there's the weather. When it's overcast, the cars are reliant on batteries which last less than 4 hours. Installing more batteries would make the car too heavy. All of this science comes at a price too. The cars in the World Solar Challenge cost a lot to build. $150,000 at the cheap end, rising up to a staggering $2 million for the most expensive. But even though we aren't likely to see these solar cars being sold at dealerships, these teams aren't wasting their time and effort. Some of their innovations have already made a difference. For example, special tyres, which were designed to enhance fuel efficiency in solar car racing, are now stocked in shops. While it looks like a lot of fun, there is some serious science, and that's worth celebrating.
Okay, that one was a relatively simple one, by the way, so they can get quite complex in nature in terms of the vocabulary and the specificity of the topic that you will hear. Cool. Let's go through the answers for this one. So the answers are, they can be surprisingly expensive. There was quite a lot mentioned about the price of these solar-powered cars. And there was also something mentioned about running it on the same amount of energy as a hairdryer, so they can run on as little power as some small household appliances. So they are the two correct answer options there. Hopefully you got them right. One thing I should mention before we move on is that there is negative marking in this. So let's say you got both of those correct, but you accidentally chose D as well, which is incorrect. So you got 2, which is good. However, 2 minus 1 equals what? It equals 1. So you'll only get 1 point because of the negative marking. So keep that in mind. That's actually the same as the reading as well. And this one here, listening, multiple choice, multiple answers. And there's one more listening one coming up that I'll talk to you about that also has negative marking. Okay, the next task is called listening fill in the blanks, and it's pretty straightforward. What you'll see on test day is something that looks like this. What you have to do is listen very intently to that audio and follow along. And you can either type the words directly into the gaps, or you can use your notebook again. You can write them down as you're listening and then transfer them into the gaps after the audio has finished. This one's pretty straightforward. You may as well have a go for yourself, and then I'll show you what the answers are.
Many of our native animal species are either threatened or endangered. This is mostly due to human activities such as logging, oil and gas drilling, overgrazing, and urban development, all of which result in habitat destruction and eventually the collapse of local ecosystems. Scientists tell us the best way to protect endangered species is to protect the places where they live. Wildlife must have places to find food, to shelter, and to raise their young. By protecting habitats, entire communities of animals and plants can be maintained. In fact, entire ecosystems can be preserved.
Okie dokie, how did you go there? Let's have a look at the answers. So the first one was activities. So it needed to be a plural noun and you needed to get the spelling correct. So it's activities. Next one was destruction. Next one is shelter, habitats. If you wrote habitat, singular, no S, it would be considered wrong. You must get the grammatical form right, that is habitats, and you must also get the spelling right to have this one marked as correct. The last word was preserved. Cool, pretty straightforward. Let's do the next task. Okay, the next task is called multiple choice choose single answer. It's very straightforward. Here we go. This is what you're going to see and hear. It says, according to the speaker, what is the main difference between the two phones? This one has given you something specific to listen for. Like all of the reading and listening multiple choice questions, that question prompt is absolutely critical. If you do not read that, or you do not read that carefully, then you don't know what you're going to be listening or reading for, and so you basically cannot answer the question, okay? So just make sure you get that right. This one's straightforward. You may as well have a go yourself, and I'll see you in a few minutes.
The latest iPhone and Samsung Galaxy are just incremental upgrades on their predecessors, though that still makes them some of the best phones available. In features and price, they're certainly two of the top flagship phones of this year. As far as design, both phones look much like their predecessors. The Samsung Galaxy's display are one style, while the iPhone is a round-edged rectangle. The Galaxy screen makes it slightly larger than the 5.8-inch displayed iPhone, if screen size matters to you. Alright, there's really only one comparison here, that camera. The Galaxy opted to stretch its 3 cameras and flash into a rectangular wedge, which looks a bit too angular in an 80s sort of way, but it's arguably more attractive than the camera on the iPhone. That setup looks all kinds of lopsided, and will arguably split phone fans down a love or hate line. But if anyone's winning this beauty contest, it's the Galaxy, by a healthy margin.
Okay, how did you go? With this one, multiple choice choose single answer, especially if the answer options are quite small, you probably can just listen and sort of flick between listening and reading. Or again, if you're good at taking notes and you're confident doing that, it's just as good, if not better, to listen and take notes and then apply your understanding of your notes and your memory to the question here. But this one was pretty straightforward because the question was quite clear. What's the main difference between the two phones? Let's have a look at it. So the look of the cameras, the upfront cost, the size of the displays, the color options, or the performance of the cameras. The answer actually was, or is, the look of the cameras. So let's have a look at the transcript here. There's a critical part of the transcript just here at the bottom. All right, there's really only one comparison here. Okay, so what is the main difference? The really only one comparison. The speaker does mention all of the other things such as display size and some other features like that. But here he says the Galaxy opted to stretch its 3 cameras and flash into a regular wedge, which looks a bit too angular in an 80s sort of way, but it's arguably more attractive than the camera on the iPhone. That setup looks all kinds of lopsided and will arguably split phone fans down a love or hate line. So this was the main difference that we're looking at here. This was why the answer is the look of the cameras. So he wasn't actually discussing the performance of the cameras. Cool. All right. They're pretty tough. They're the sorts of questions that you want to get some practice at long before test day. So again, sign up to e2language.com to prepare for your PTE. And let's look at the next task of the listening section. Okay, this task, highlight correct summary, I hate to tell you, is a laborious one. It's a challenging one. It's a difficult one. One of the reasons is because the answer options here are very long. And so it poses a real cognitive dilemma for us. That is, because we cannot read and listen at the same time, we have to take notes in this particular task and match our notes and our memories to one of these answer options. The other three will be sort of plausible. They will be sort of somewhat correct, but maybe a little bit wrong. Only one of them accurately summarizes what was said in the audio. Now, I've got a little video here because sometimes in PTE, you will actually be given a video instead of an audio player. So just keep that in mind. The critical thing about this is that the visual of the video doesn't matter. It's what the person is saying. It's their speech. It's the oral form, the audio, that is critical. Cool. All right, so have a go at this one. Again, take notes while you listen, match your notes and your memory to the best summary of what was said. I'll see you in a minute.
When we think about the opposite of work, we many times think it's leisure. And we say, I need some leisure time, and so forth. But the fact is that leisure is a very busy thing. We go to play golf and tennis, and we meet people, and we're going for lunch, and we're running late for the movies. It's a very crowded thing that we do. The opposite of work is actually idleness. But very few of us know what to do with idleness. When we look at the way that we distribute our lives in general, we begin to realise that in the periods in which we have a lot of money, we have very little time. And then when we finally have time, we have neither money nor health.
Okay, how did you go with this one? As I said, it's a sort of, look, to be honest, by this stage of the exam, especially on test day when you've done multiple question types for each task, you are emotionally, intellectually, cognitively, physically drained. It's really quite exhausting. The key to success on the listening section from here on in is your ability, again, to maintain concentration. Because trust me, by this stage, your blood sugar levels have dropped down so low. You are starting to daydream. You're forgetting that you're even. What am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm taking the most important test of my life here. What? Oh yeah. Wonder what I'll have for lunch later. Okay, your ability to pay attention now is really critical. So please stay with me for the rest of this. You need to build up your endurance skills. Okay, let's have a look at this one here. So 3 of these were sort of incorrect. They mentioned a lot of key words, for example, from the audio. However, they were just not correct summaries of what was said, or they didn't focus on the important parts. This was the important one. Basically, what the person said here was that despite what many of us believe, idleness, not leisure, is the opposite of work. However, today we don't know how to be idle. We are too busy with work or packed leisure schedules. Ironically, we are likely to have enough time when we don't have money or wealth. That was what was said in essence, or in short. Cool. Let's do the next one. Stay with me. Okay, I just want to stop here and talk to you for a minute about our PTE mini mock test and why it's so important. So what you're doing right now is the free mock test, and it's great practice. It gives you a good idea of what to expect, but it does not provide you with any critical feedback on your speaking and writing, and it doesn't allow you to drill down into all the different question types to find out which ones you're not performing well on. I'm getting tired too. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so if you do go and take PTE and you're unsuccessful, maybe you're just not sure what went wrong, come back and take the PTE mini mock test, okay? You get to experience the exam in like a 2-hour sitting, so it's a shortened mock test. You experience the speed and pressure of the real test. What you'll receive though is really important. So for all of the speaking tasks and all of the writing tasks, you'll receive a report with grades and comments from our teachers, which will help to improve your score. One of the problems with these tests is that we just don't know what we're doing wrong. And we just get a number that says, 62, and you think, why 62? This will tell you why you got 62, okay? So do think about taking the PTE mini mock test with feedback. It's a really, really it's a really effective way to improve, efficient and effective way to improve. Okay, this task is pretty interesting. It's called Select Missing Word, and what it tests is your ability to anticipate what the speaker was going to say, for example. So often when we're listening, if we're listening intently, we can sort of predict what will be said because we've understood what was said, okay? This is a good indication that you have good listening abilities, and this is a particular task constructed to test for that. So the audio that you'll hear will be a little bit shorter than usual. It won't be sort of 90 seconds, it'll be around the sort of 30 to 40 second mark. And the final word or phrase will be replaced by a beeping sound. Okay, let's take a look at this one in more depth. Okay, so what you'll notice is that there are 4 or 5 or 6 answer options. They're short because, again, they're finishing somebody's sentence, right? Now, here you can't actually get much meaning from them because it completely relates to what is going to be said here. On test day, what I suggest you do is you'll see this moving along, indicating when the audio is going to be finished playing. And so as soon as it gets really close to here, you know you're going to hear the beep sound. So it's critical that you listen, like you're going to listen intently through the whole thing, but here you're going to complete silence and awareness and just understand what is going to be said. Just a little hint, up the top here, it will actually give you the topic of what this will be about. So if you do happen to remember that, you'll know you're going to hear an audio about internet technology, for example. Cool. You may as well practice this one. I'll see you in a little bit.
If you don't know what HTML5 is, let me help you understand. It's a programming language, but it's a profound one because for the first time, we're able to construct a web page where the entire thing can have embedded interactivity, can have video, audio, whatever it is that we want. We no longer need flash boxes. And this represents a huge, huge change because it's essentially opened up a new canvas. And it hasn't just opened it up for the New York Times or large corporations. It's opened it up for everybody on WordPress. It's opened it up for musicians and home entrepreneurs because suddenly the ability to produce a differentiated, highly compelling, value-added, maybe even monetizable product
Okie dokie, how did you go? Were you able to anticipate what the speaker was going to beep say? Let's have a look. This one was about, what was he talking about? HTML5 or something like that. But anyway, it ended with is there as the correct one. It wasn't about expense or intrigue or redundancy. This was the only phrase that could end this correctly, according to what he had been talking about and what he was going to say. Cool. Let's move on and do the next task. We're getting close to the end now. Let's do the next task of the listening section. Okay, this is the second last task of the listening section and the entire PTE. It's called highlight incorrect words. It's a bit of a strange task. This is what it looks like, and what happens is that this lecture that you'll hear from here, this here is a transcript. So it's exactly the same word for word. However, some of the words, a handful of the words differ. Okay, so let's say 95% of the words are the same, but there will be like, say, 3, 4, or 5 words that are different from what the speaker actually says. On test day, when you see this task, you need to get your cursor and put it right at the front of the first word here, because as the recording starts to play, you'll move your mouse along and you need to click on the words, click on the words that differ from what the speaker said. Okay, this is also the other task that has negative marking. So you can't just click all the words. And if you click one accidentally, you can unclick it. Simple as that. But yes, what it's getting you to do is to listen very intently and read very intently at the same time, and to distinguish or find the differences between what was said and what is written on the page, and to simply click on it like that. Cool, may as well have a go at it. So again, before the audio starts playing, move your mouse right to the start. As soon as that audio starts playing, move along and click, click, click on the incorrect words. I'll see you in a second or two or more.
The first recorded use of wearable glasses occurred in Italy during the 13th century. The lenses were glass-blown and set into wooden or leather frames. They were held in front of the face or perched on the nose. Initially used by monks, the glasses grew in popularity, and the technology improved over the next 2 centuries. Artwork remains the best evidence that these glasses existed, as early Renaissance paintings sometimes depict scholars using either handheld frames or perched-style glasses.
Okay, how did you go clicking on those incorrect words? Let's have a look. So hopefully you clicked on the word feather because the speaker said leather. Hopefully you clicked on the word placed, click, because the speaker said perched. Hopefully you clicked on the word quality because the speaker said popularity. And hopefully you clicked on the word people because the speaker said scholars. Okay, so there were 1, 2, 3, 4 words here that differed from what the speaker said in the audio. Cool. Let's move on and do the final task of the entire test. You've done very well. Okay, the final task of the listening section and the entire test is called Write from Dictation. But before we look at that, I just want to remind you about how important it is to prepare if you want to succeed on your test. I can't tell you the number of people that I have met, through working at E2 Language who have taken a test a number of times and continued to fail and haven't sought or gotten preparation because they thought, just let me do it one more time. Just another $350, just one more month of my life. Let me just have one more crack at it. It's crazy, honestly. The amount of money that people spent on failed exams, if they just spent a little bit of time and money preparing beforehand, they would just do it so much quicker. So if you do want to prepare to succeed, check out e2language.com for live group classes, one-on-one tutorials, smart questions, speaking and writing feedback. And if you need more fundamental help with your language skills, check out e2school.com, where you can take courses like Test Ready, Speaking Lab for pronunciation, level 0 to 3, and grammar review. So they're the two websites that you absolutely need if you need help on your PTE or your basic general English language skills. All right, enough of that. Let's have a look at write from dictation. This is what it looks like on test day. What's going to happen is you're going to hear a single sentence. It's very much like repeat sentence. Right at the beginning in the speaking section, we talked about repeat sentence, where you hear a sentence and you say the sentence back. This one's pretty much the same, except instead of saying the sentence, you type the sentence out. Simple as that. Hear a sentence, listen very intently, understand it, then type it out. Importantly, don't listen and type at the same time because you would just confuse yourself. The sentences literally go for a few seconds, right? Cool. Simple as that. You don't need to worry about punctuation, actually, capital letters and full stops. You may as well use good punctuation. You do have to worry about spelling. Most importantly, you do have to make sure that you get the right words in the right sequence. Anyway, have a go and I'll show you what the answer is in a few minutes.
We solve problems through innovation and hard work.
Okay, how did you go listening to that sentence and typing it out? I should point out that at this stage of the exam, your time will be ticking down. So this is a really critical task to get right. And it's important that you complete all of the write from dictations. You get to the final one, the end of the exam, because this task contributes points to both your writing and your listening scores, okay? And it seems to contribute quite a few points to your writing score. That is, when we see people who have low listening and writing scores, one of the reasons is because they didn't complete all of the write from dictation tasks here. Anyway, so the sentence that you just heard was, we solve problems through innovation and hard work. So that's what you should have written there. That is what the sentence looks like in its correct form. Simple as that. Well done. That's it. You've just done all 20 tasks of PTE Academic and you've had a good taste of the complexity, the challenge, hopefully for some of you, the simplicity of it. It is a really good test. It's really, on test day, it really does function and flow very smoothly. There's a lot going on here. Fundamentally though, this is an English language test. So if you are lacking vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation, there's not much you can do. I really strongly suggest E2 School for you. If your English skills are already very good, that is, you have strong vocabulary, grammar, and very clear pronunciation, then you'd need to do some test prep, okay? Some practice questions, some live classes, stuff like that, and you should be right. Anyway, enough from me. Thank you very much for joining me for this. I hope it was helpful. My name is Jay. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll pass this test and you'll move on with your life, which would be great. See ya.